Hey, I am back with part three of the Bible reading of the Messianic Jewish Family Bible, the Tree of Life version, TLV. And we are doing this week Genesis chapters 1 through 4. And we just paused in part of chapter 2. So we're going to continue with chapter 2 at this point. And I just want to mention, if you hear this little noise in the background, my my USB port is going, so the mouse on my computer keeps going in and out. So that's what that little noise is in the background. I have a dying computer, so just bear with me on that. So chapter 2, the second section is humanity in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden. These are the genealogical records of the heavens and the earth when they were created at the time when Adonai Elohim made land and sky. Now, Adonai Elohim is simply the Lord God. Now, no shrub of the field was in the land yet, and no green plants of the field had sprouted yet, for Adonai Elohim had not caused it to rain upon the land. And there was no one to work the ground, but a mist came up from the land and watered the whole surface of the ground. Now I want to pause here for a minute. This is just marvelous. I mean, this is amazing to think about this. Because when we think about rain, we think about rain coming from the sky. But this was a mist coming up from the ground to actually water the whole earth. So that had to be just amazing in and of itself. Then Adonai formed the man out of the dust from the ground, and he breathed into his nostrils a breath of life. So the man became a living being. Then Adonai Elohim planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Then Adonai Elohim caused to sprout from the ground every tree that was desirable to look at and good for food. Now the tree of life was in the middle of the garden, and also the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A river flowed out of Eden to water the garden. From there it divided and became four river heads. The name of the first is Pishon, the one that winds around the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Bdellium, and lapis lazuli stones are also there. The name of the second river is Gihon, and it winds around the whole land of Cush. And Gihon is spelled Gihon, and Pishon is spelled Pishon. And Havilah is spelled Havilah, and that's the river Pishon wound around Havilah, and Gihon wound around Cush, Cuhs. I'm sorry, Cush, being backwards there. The name of the third river is Tigris, Tigris, and it runs east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. Then Adonai Elohim took the man and gave him rest in the Garden of Eden in order to cultivate and watch over it. Then Adonai Elohim commanded the man, saying, "From all the trees of the garden you are most welcome to eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you must not eat, for when you eat from it, you most assuredly will die." Now this is actually in chapter 2, verses 15 to 17. So Adonai Elohim was speaking directly to Adam. So Adam was well aware, and this is a spoiler alert for chapter 3, what is going to happen. But Adam was directly told by Adonai Elohim not to partake of that tree. Okay, going on verse 18. Then Adonai Elohim said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. Let me make a well-matched helper for him." Adonai Elohim had formed from the ground every animal of the field and every flying creature of the skies. So he brought them to the man to see what he would call them. Whatever the man called them, each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all of the livestock, to the flying creatures of the sky, and all of the animals of the field. But for the man, he did not find a well-matched helper for him. I'm going to pause this for just a second. Imagine Adam naming every living plant, every living animal in the sky, in the land and the sea. He did that. God gave him dominion. And actually, when Eve is created, he will give them both dominion over all of this. But he actually gave charge to Adam to name all of this. So you know the type of brain that Adam had. And also that's a form of creation too. So we were created in God's image. So actually that you can see that it, operating in Adam as he names everything that is on the face of the earth and under the sea, in the sea rather, and in the sky. Okay, so we're going to continue on with verse 21. Adonai Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Adonai Elohim built the rib which he had taken from the man into a woman. Then he brought her to the man. Then the man said, "This one, at last, is bone of my bone and flesh from my flesh. This one is called woman, for from man was taken this one. This is why a man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife, and they become one flesh." Now both of them were naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. So I'm going to go back again and read those verses in Matthew 19. "Haven't you read?" he answered. "He who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, 'For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh.' So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate." And he's mentioning male and female, and woman and man are coupled together, and that is what God ordains. The other thing I want to mention in these passages is, as you see, God was the first surgeon. He performed surgery on Adam, taking that rib out to form the woman, Eve. So that's a little interesting tidbit there. So now we're going to move into chapter 3 of Genesis. "But the serpent was shrewder than any animal of the field that Adonai Elohim made. So it said to the woman, 'Did God really say you must not eat from all the trees of the garden?'" So he's starting to plant doubt and temptation into her head, causing her to think, actually causing her to doubt. "The woman said to the serpent, 'Of the fruit of the trees we may eat, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God said, you must not eat of it, and you must not touch it, or you will die.'" Well, she added to that word too, because God did not say back there, you must not touch it. He just said, he told Adam that they may not eat from that tree, or they will surely die. "The serpent said to the woman, 'You most assuredly won't die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.'" So that enticed Eve at that point, the woman, because she's not actually called Eve yet. But that enticed her to take a look at that tree. So that's how temptation starts. He's planting, if you think about that yourself, is you'll get an idea that might come from where it should not be coming from. And so you start getting curious, then you start looking. And so that's how temptation works even today. So that's what was happening with the woman. Now the woman she actually looked at the tree, and we're going to start up here with verse 6. "Now the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a thing of lust for the eyes, and that the tree was desirable for imparting wisdom. So she took of its fruit and she ate. She also gave to her husband who was with her, and he ate." He wasn't off somewhere doing something else in the garden. He actually could have put a stop to this at this point, because he got direct word from God. Back when I told you, spoiler alert, in chapter 2, God spoke directly to Adam about this tree. So he could have said, "No, no, no, we're not supposed to do this," because God, Adonai Elohim, said not to. So I'm not going to be part of this. But no, he did not. He actually he joined her, and as it says, she also gave to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made for themselves loin coverings. And then they heard the sound of Adonai Elohim going to and fro in the garden in the wind of the day. So the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Adonai Elohim in the midst of the tree of the garden. Then Adonai Elohim called to the man, and he said to him, "Where are you?" Then he said, "Your sound. I heard it in the garden, and I was afraid, because I am naked, and I hid myself." Then he said, "Who told you that you are naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat?" Well, Adonai Elohim already knew that that's what happened. I mean, he wanted Adam to confirm that for him. But it's interesting to note that Adonai Elohim met with them every day. Every day they communed with the Lord, and they were not afraid before. So now suddenly they are. So verse 12 says, "Then the man said, 'The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me the tree and I ate.'" So now he's placing blame on the woman, even though he knew. He knew because Adonai Elohim told him directly. He did not tell the woman. He told Adam directly. Adonai Elohim said to the woman, "What did you do?" The woman said, "The serpent deceived me and I ate." Adonai Elohim said to the serpent, "Because you did this, cursed are you above all the livestock and above every animal of the field. On your belly will you go, and dust will you eat all the days of your life. I will put animosity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. He will crush your head, and you will crush his heel." That's that's a precursor to knowing exactly, okay, who we're talking about here. We're talking about Yeshua will crush his head, and he will crush his heel. That is, the at Golgotha. So that's kind of like a foreshadowing into the future. To the woman he said, "I will greatly increase your pain from conception to labor. In pain will you give birth to your children. Your desire will be towards your husband, and yet he must rule over you." Then to the man he said, "Because you listened to your wife's voice and ate of the tree which I commanded you, saying you must not eat of it, cursed is the ground because of you. With pain will you eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles will sprout for you. You will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow will you eat your food. Will you eat food until you return to the ground, since from it were you taken, for you are dust, and to dust you will return. So suddenly they're going to have to toil the ground. There's going to be weeds where there was no weeds before because the garden was perfect for them. They didn't have to really work at anything. Um, they just took care of and had dominion over creation. However, with this fall of man, that wasn't going to be so. It wasn't going to be so easy for them anymore. They were going to have to work the field. There was going to be thorns and thistles will sprout, that they had to weed. This is what we call weeding the garden. Well, if this hadn't happened, we wouldn't have any weeds in the garden. So that's how that all came about. Now, Adam named his wife Eve because she was the mother of all the living. Adonai Elohim made Adam and his wife tunics of skin, and he clothed them. Then Adonai Elohim said, "Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. So now, in case he stretches out his hand and takes also from the tree of life and eats and lives forever, Adonai Elohim sent him away from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. And he expelled the man, and at the east of the Garden of Eden he had a cherubim dwell along, with a whirling sword of flame to guard the way of the tree of life, so no one would get back into the garden once they were cast out, and they were cast out of the garden. So I'm going to go also to Romans 16:20, which is in the New Testament. And Romans 16:20 reads, Now the God of Shalom will soon crush Satan under your feet. May the grace of our Lord Yeshua be with you. So that is in reference to what Adonai Elohim had said to Eve. And I'm going to pause this now. We're going to come back with part 4, and we're going to talk about Cain and Abel.